Hi, I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to Operation Freedom Briefings. The goal of these briefings and my weekly radio show, Operation Freedom, is to provide you information the bought-off, lamestream, fake media is not going to present. The goal of our information is, again, to empower you. Information is power. A couple things I got to clean up here a little bit. This is the only authorized YouTube channel for my content, for Dave Janda, for Operation Freedom. And the reason why I bring that up is that over the past couple weeks, there are a number of channels that have taken our content, these videos, put them on their channels, and are saying it's their content. And they're actually monetized. As you'll notice, there are no advertisements. We are not monetized. We applied for monetization for YouTube over 11 months ago, and we've been denied. Yet channels that have stolen our content, our copywritten original content, are monetized. Just another issue with YouTube. So if you see these YouTube presentations on another channel, please leave a comment saying this is a ripoff, this is unauthorized. I really would appreciate you doing that. I also hope you'll join us on our radio show every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. It's a live show. We have great guests, great analysis. Just this past weekend's guest with General McInerney, former undercover DEA agent Bob Mazur, who brought down Pablo Escobar, Sarah Westall, Adriana Vogt. We had a huge guests, and we had significant information that you're not going to get from the bought-off, lamestream, fake media. I hope you'll join us at davejanda.com every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern. It's free. Just go to davejanda.com, hit the Listen Live button, and listen. We have a free site, a public site at davejanda.com where we upload information on a very regular basis. We also have a subscription site at 30 cents a day where we have access to all the podcasts for our subscribers, not just from the last week's show, but from every show since its inception of Operation Freedom to October 2010. We also have the WTF show, which is a geopolitical analysis show. We have our Insider Insight show where we deep dive with a guest on issues that are occurring behind the curtain. We have a Department of Advanced Research show. We have our healthcare briefing section. We have our contributing editor section, all available for 30 cents a day, $9 a month. You can sign up for a month. If you don't like it, get rid of it. But again, the information you get, the guests you're exposed to, the analysis you're exposed to, you're never going to see, hear, or experience through the bought-off, lamestream, fake media. Today, I want to focus on Thanksgiving. We all have a tremendous amount to be thankful for. And I want to take you back many years when I was in first grade. And I came home to talk to my mom about what happened at school that day. My mom was a history teacher, and she was a very unique type of teacher in a sense that she would always implore her students and her son to dig deep, to not accept what she called the fantasies that were discussed in history books, that the rewashed and rewashed information that really was not factually based, but more of a story. I bring this up because I came home from first grade and we had a Thanksgiving play that day. And she said, "What happened today?" "Oh, we had a play about Thanksgiving." And she said, "Well, explain to me about what the play was about and what you discussed about Thanksgiving, the real Thanksgiving." And she said, and I said, "Well, we talked about the Pilgrims coming to Plymouth, Massachusetts, and it was a hard time, and some of them died, but most of them prospered. They worked hard, they were industrious, and they worked with Native Americans, and they had such a fantastic crop that they celebrated with Thanksgiving." And that happened every year after that. And I always remember that my mom sat me down. She goes, "That's a wonderful story, David, but it's not true. Let me tell you what really happened." That was in the early 1960s that conversation occurred. And I remember it every Thanksgiving because until the day she died in 2006, every Thanksgiving, she used to say to me, "Hey, Dave, do you remember when you came home from first grade about Thanksgiving and our discussion?" And we'd relive it every year because she wanted to reinforce the point she made then. And it's very similar to points that were made by a great writer by the name of Richard Maybury in an article that he published in 1985. And actually, I have that article, and I actually shared it with my mom back in 1985. And again, it was an article that we kept bringing up until her passing in 2006. But it really focused on what my mom had taught me about what the real story was. And what the real story was really a story of systems. Socialism versus free market capitalism. It's a story that actually didn't end in 1621 or 1622. All you have to do is, let's just look at the recent election in November of 2016. You see, I believe a Clinton-Obama Thanksgiving this year would be drastically different than the Trump Thanksgiving that we're experiencing. And I say that because Obama and Clinton are globalists, deep state globalists of the Rothschild-Rockefeller axis that we've discussed before. That silo of globalists utilizes socialism to advance their agenda. Trump, as we've discussed before, I believe he does have some affiliations with the globalists, but a different silo, one of which, a silo that is not about the destruction of sovereignty of a country, the United States, or countries around the world, but one of which is more based on nationalism. Not this white supremacy garbage that the deep state keeps trying to tar everybody who's a nationalist with, but nationalism, where you put the interests of your own people and your own country ahead of other countries. And that doesn't mean you incite war on these other countries. It just means that you look out for the welfare of your own citizens and your country ahead of other countries. I don't have a problem with that. Just because one country does well does not mean the rest of the world doesn't. I mean, it's the old theory of as one gets better, you lift up everyone else in the process. And I believe that's what we learned, and this is what my mom taught me about what happened in the Plymouth colony in the 1620s. Look, the play was, everybody did, some people had problems the first year, but everybody did great. They all worked together. They were industrious. That wasn't the case. All you have to do, and this is through Richard Maybury's work as well. William Bradford, who was the governor of Plymouth Colony, he had a book that he wrote on. It's called The History of Plymouth Plantation. He reported that the colonists went hungry for years because they refused to work in the fields. Very different from that story. They preferred instead to steal food. He says the colony was riddled with corruption and with confusion and discontent. The crops were small because, quote, much was stolen both by night and day before it became scarcely edible, end quote. The feasts of 1621 and 1622 were actually very limited and not the marketing that I had learned as a first grader. But, big but, in subsequent years something changed. The harvest of 1623, as reported by Bradford, the governor of Plymouth Colony, was different. Here's what he said. Suddenly, quote, instead of famine, now God gave them plenty. In fact, in 1624, so much food was produced that the colonists were able to begin exporting corn. So what happened? And this is the lesson my mom taught me in the early 60s, rewritten by Richard Maybury in 1985. After the poor harvest of 1622, writes Bradford, quote, they began to think how they might raise as much corn as they could and obtain a better crop. They began to question their form of economic organization. This is key. This had required their initial organization, quote, all profits and benefits that are got by trade, working, fishing, or any other means were to be placed in the common stock of the colony, and that all such persons as are of this colony are to have their meat, drink, apparel, and all provisions out of the common stock. A person was to put into the common stock all he could and take out only what he needed. Can you say socialism? Yes. This, quote, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, end quote, was an early form of socialism. And it is why the Pilgrims were starving. Bradford writes that, quote, young men that are most able and fit for labor and service complained about being forced to spend their time and strength to work for other men's wives and children. So the young and strong refused to work, and the total amount of food produced was never adequate. So what happened? So to rectify the situation, in 1623, the governor, Bradford, what did he do? He abolished socialism. He gave each household a parcel of land and told them they could keep what they produced and trade it away as they saw fit. In other words, he replaced socialism, folks, with a free market. And that was the end of famines and destruction and death. And Plymouth Colony was not alone in that. Many early groups of colonists set up social estates, all with the same terrible results. Jamestown, for example, established in 1607, out of every shipload of settlers that arrived, less than half would survive their first 12 months in America. Same situation. They called it the starving time. But when they switched from socialism to a free market approach, life returned. Destruction went away. Death was minimized. Mayberry, in his article, concludes, thus the real reason for Thanksgiving, and this was Ruth Janda's lesson to me as a first grader, the real reason for Thanksgiving, deleted from the official story, is socialism does not work. The one and only source of abundance is free markets. And we thank God we live in a country where we potentially can have them. You see, folks, if we go back before 2016, we were on a road to a huge nanny state, a dependency state, just as was described by Governor William Bradford in the early settlement of Plymouth. And I believe in November of 2016, Trump, his team, and freedom fighters stepped forward. And they transformed us initially, and it's still a work in progress, from a dependent nanny state, where everybody walking around with their Obama phones, to a state where regulations were diminished, government involvement and intrusion in people's lives was diminished. It's far from gone. But one in which markets, financial systems were addressed so that we had more of a free market approach. We have a long way to go. But you got to take those first steps in order to get to the promised land of freedom and liberty. Many people are very frustrated with where we are. And this morning, I received an email message from a subscriber to our platform, davejanda.com. And I'd like to share it with you in my response, because I believe many people are very frustrated. We're all frustrated on many fronts. I understand that. And we don't see things moving as quickly as we'd like. But here's what this subscriber wrote to me. Dear Dr. Jan, I'm a subscriber and incidentally a fellow surgeon, more accurately a vascular surgeon. After viewing a video today on another channel, I believe that Trump has delivered on nothing of import. Unless Trump delivers on something significant within the next 4 to 6 weeks, I think we're in a very, very serious situation. I hope I am wrong, but fear I am not. This is my response. Thanks for reaching out. I agree we have a window that is closing, about 4 to 6 weeks. If we do not see significant movement in that time frame, then I believe our country is in a world of trouble. I have some perspective on this. I have personal experience in dealing with the deep state and have paid a price for my opposition. My contacts have fought the deep state, in some cases for decades, and have paid a huge price for their dedication to freedom. These same contacts are aligned and support Trump. They have put their lives and their families' lives on the line for doing so. They are not foolish. They are courageous. The person in this video, I believe, is trying to help, that you cite, but their analysis, I believe, is superficial at best and based on a knowledge base of information and facts, which is lacking. Trump, in fact, I believe, has already delivered. Imagine what this country would be like if Hillary had won. Imagine if Plymouth Colony had continued on that road to socialism. A road that the globalist deep state syndicate had us on up until 2016. And that includes with the Bushes and with the Clintons and with the Obamas. We were truly on the road to ruin, folks. Imagine what the country would be like if Hillary had won. Just like if Plymouth Colony had stayed with socialism. Trump and his team are taking on a deep state which has been entrenched for over 100 years. I'm very sincere when I say this. Some people will think this is hyperbole, but it's not. If Hillary had won, I can tell you for a fact, I and hundreds of others would no longer be living. Our country would have been at war in 2017. Martial law would have been instituted in 2017. And the financial system would have collapsed. And that is just for starters. We have a long way to go. But so did William Bradford when he recognized a problem in that early Plymouth Colony while dozens and dozens of the colonists died every year. He recognized the problem. Just as Trump and his team and the freedom fighters behind Trump recognized the problem. And they set about a change. My mom used to say, and it's a well-known saying, that history repeats itself. And if it doesn't quite repeat itself, it does tend to rhyme. I believe history is in the process of repeating itself. And I believe, rather than William Bradford instituting a change, this time we have a freedom team, of which the most recognizable person of that team is Trump. But there are hundreds and hundreds of people, I believe, behind Trump, in the government, and millions of patriots in the public, us, who are behind the freedom movement, which is bigger than one man or one person. And I believe the end game for the freedom movement will be very similar to what happened in Plymouth Colony in the 1600s. I believe freedom will lead to a better life for every American and every person of the world. I thank you for joining me today. Please feel free to join us. We're 24/7 at davejanda.com. Yes, we're on the radio 2 to 5 every Sunday, davejanda.com. You can stream it. But we're also on call for you 24/7 on the public side at davejanda.com and through our subscription service, where we have a tremendous amount of content at davejanda.com, 30 cents a day, $9 a month. And again, the only authorized site for our content is this channel, Operation Freedom, on YouTube, and the DaveJanda.com platform. If you see this information anywhere else, it's unauthorized and it's stolen. As we sign off every broadcast, until next time, this is Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thank you for your time today, and happy Thanksgiving.